It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Well, today, the big story in Southern California is that the federal government, through the Department of Justice and acting U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli, are suing Southern California Edison. Why? Because at this point, everyone's aware that Southern California Edison and their faulty equipment started the Eaton Fire that wiped out Altadena and parts of Pasadena. Thousands of homes, dozens of lives. Let's hear the latest on the lawsuit and even more new footage and photos that have emerged that are showing exactly that SoCal Edison is yet to blame. And if this sounds familiar, it's because SoCal Edison was found to be the blame and the start of the Woolsey Fire and the Signal Fire and so on and so on and so on. So if I sound a little defeated right now, it's because I don't think this lawsuit is going to change a damn thing. But let's hear the latest on what the federal government says SoCal Edison did and what they're going to do about it.
Federal prosecutors now suing Southern California Edison, saying that its
This is ABC 7.
Federal prosecutors now suing Southern California Edison, saying that its negligence caused the devastating Eaton Fire.
For more, we go to Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell live in Pasadena, where the fire is believed to have started, with new images that back up the lawsuit. Josh.
And the images that we are about to show you were taken on January 7th in the evening. The exact view you're seeing right now over my shoulder of a transmission tower. One of the towers is gone. One of them is still.
Because one of them was a derelict tower that SoCal Edison was too cheap to get rid of. They just let it sit there with what they're now calling zombie wires.
One of them is still here. Those who live in this neighborhood say they have known from the very beginning what caused the Eaton Fire.
Yeah, this one wasn't as big of a mystery as Palisades, which we still don't have an answer for. SoCal Edison, in a regulatory filing with the SEC, wrote, "A month into the fire, we're pretty sure it was us."
Although the investigation into the cause of the Eaton Fire is still underway, never-before-seen photos and videos obtained by Eyewitness News backs up the leading theory that the fire started under Southern California Edison transmission lines in the hills above Pasadena next to Altadena. The Department of Justice says they're so sure SCE is responsible that they filed a lawsuit Thursday seeking damages.
They're seeking $40 million and then $40 million for another fire SoCal Edison started, which is not a whole lot. I'm not very impressed by these civil charges. I think until we see criminal charges for the criminal negligence of these destructive fires, it's not going to mean a damn thing. And when I say criminal charges, I mean actual people who made these negligent decisions facing prison time. Something that we don't see in the world of corporate America, thanks to something called deferred prosecution.
Based on the evidence that we have and Edison's own statements in its recent SEC filing that there's no other apparent cause for the fire, we're confident and we are comfortable moving forward with the lawsuit at this point.
We saw what happened with our own eyes, and we're not the only ones. If that tower had been properly removed when it should have been, and I don't know how much it would have cost to do it at that time, but.
Well, here's the funny thing. No matter how much we love to say all of these ways to mitigate or to eliminate fire risk is expensive, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the cost of how devastating this fire was. A fire so devastating that it might forever change the home insurance industry, not just in Southern California, but in the entire country, maybe the world.
It would have been a hell of a lot cheaper than what happened.
It's clearly under a tower. So, yeah, that seems like a pretty big indication to me.
4 months after the Eaton Fire, 2 towers, part of the investigation, were removed via helicopter, sent to a warehouse to undergo lab testing.
Not a good look for SoCal Edison.
The lawsuit seeks more than $40 million in damages,
which means nothing. SoCal Edison makes that in a day, mostly on ratepayers.
And the federal government says they'll make sure, if successful, costs aren't passed on to ratepayers.
That's another thing that I'm a little suspect about here, because when the settlement was finally reached for the Woolsey Fire, which the Woolsey Fire was many years ago, but the settlement was finally reached just a few months ago, the judge said and okayed SoCal Edison to recoup those costs from ratepayers. So the people who are the victims of the fire have to pay for the victims of the fire. Is any of this making sense?
The DOJ filed another lawsuit against SCE for starting the Fairview fire in Hemet back in 2022.
Fire season's coming up again. We want Edison to change the way it does business. It does not maintain.
It's not going to. Maybe I'm a little defeatist about that. I don't think PG&E is changing their behavior. I don't think SoCal Edison is changing their behavior. They don't care. It's the cost of doing business. And maybe it's not even in their business model to care. It's not like they're a municipal utility. These are private monopolies.
It's infrastructure in a way.
I'm not saying DWP is much better, but ideally, you would think that if the city or the county is the one that could be liable, you do everything that you can to eliminate that risk. Like, I don't know, forking out the money to underground power lines, which can eliminate fire risk by 97%.
It's infrastructure in a way to prevent fires.
In a statement, Southern California Edison said in part, "We continue our work to reduce the likelihood of our equipment starting a wildfire. SCE is committed to wildfire mitigation through grid hardening."
Yeah, you know what they're doing? They're insulating some wires, which really doesn't do a whole lot. But also, why weren't they insulated to begin with?
Situational awareness.
And these grids are only going to grow. You're only going to see more energy usage, especially with the rise of AI and data centers. In fact, you know, maybe this is a little out of the box, but since it's so prohibitively expensive for SoCal Edison and PG&E and the municipal utilities to pay for the undergrounding of their power lines, and it is expensive, but nothing compared to the devastating wildfires, maybe we got to figure out a way that all of these AI companies, including the big tech firms like Google, that are now buying up these massive data centers all along the state, all around the country. They want to build a whole bunch around the high-speed rail. Maybe we've got to have them pay into a fund that undergrounds these power lines because they're soon to be the largest user of the power grid. All that AI slop that you search for on ChatGPT, it takes a lot of power.
Situational awareness and enhanced operational practices. The Eaton Fire was heartbreaking for so many of us who live and work in the Los Angeles area. And Edison also saying that while the fire is still under investigation, they will review the lawsuit and respond through the appropriate legal channels. Live in Pasadena, Josh Haskell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
So there you go. That's the big news. The federal government suing SoCal Edison for starting the Eaton Fire and also starting a different fire in Hemet for $40 million. Okay. My question to you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222 is this. Do you think SoCal Edison has learned their lesson? Or is this not going to change a damn thing about the way that this utility operates? I happen to believe the latter, but what say you? Do you think anything is going to change because of a $40 million lawsuit from the federal government to SoCal Edison over the Eaton Fire? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. What do you think about the federal government suing SoCal Edison for a measly $40 million for the Eaton Fire. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to John in La Cañada. John, hello.
Hey, good afternoon, and I just want to straighten some things out here. First of all, those crosshead towers do not belong to Southern California Edison. They belong to the Department of Water and Power, and they can be tracked all the way to the gas-powered power plant on Sheldon in Sun Valley. I have pictures of all that, and I'll tell you what, those are not SCE towers. The SCE towers are the ones that go straight up in the air 150 or 120 feet. Those cross-headed towers belong to the Department of Water and Power.
But why would DWP have towers in a jurisdiction where they're not in? DWP only covers the city of L.A., and Altadena and Pasadena is not the city of L.A.
But they're still transferring power to other parts of L.A. County, Long Beach, San Pedro. All those towers, if you track those towers down the 605 freeway, you can see where they go. It's not about just getting power to L.A. City. It's about selling power to anybody else they can sell power to.
All right. Well, if that's the case, why don't you think Bill Asaley is suing LADWP?
I think this is not going to be anything but a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And after it's all done, and by the way, they can't bury transmission lines. So all this hoopla about putting it underground, you can't bury this power comes from Hoover Dam, for God's sakes. You know, I mean, they're going to put this stuff underground. And I want to really give a hands out to the guys who replaced all the power lines in Altadena, because they got it done in about 7 weeks. Those guys busted their chops. There were 7 or 8 crews that replaced all the power lines to bring everything back online. And I think that everybody owes those guys a real appreciation clap, because they did a wonderful job. And without them, they wouldn't have the power ready to go right now. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, I went up. If you go up to like these different areas where these poles are, you can see like DWP has signs that says, hey, you know what? This is a high voltage situation that has a SCE placard on it. But that tower that has the crosshead on it, that burned, you know, the one, because as a matter of fact, that tower didn't continue anywhere. It stopped at Eaton Canyon. There was no more power lines going anywhere off of that tower. Okay. So people that are just getting the wrong story, they're getting lied to. It's just kind of like Hinckley. You know, it's the same kind of.
Hey, John, you can't say that in the air. Can we dump that? Thanks so much for the call. Look, here's the thing. Cal Edison in their own filing said we were most likely to blame. So I don't know why you're trying to say that Cal Edison is so blameless in this. But sure, you can have your own opinion on this. I'm a little suspect of the motivations of that last phone call, but you're always welcome to provide your opinion right here. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. The federal government announced that they are suing Cal Edison for starting the Eaton Fire for $40 million. And they claim Cal Edison can't pass on their costs to the ratepayers the way they have done in several past fires. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is, do you think this is going to change that company's behavior at all? I don't. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Ray in Manhattan Beach. Ray, hello.
Hello. Well, you know, if you look at a situation where you know you're going to get a spark, who's more at fault, the one with the spark or the one that has the fuel all over the ground? So a question I would have is, did the fire start in the property line for Edison, or was it on county property? Because most of the places I've seen where Edison's power lines go, the strip of land that they own is pretty well maintained. The government land isn't maintained. So,
well, there's definitely can be some shared liability there if you're talking about the fuel that can exacerbate the fire, but ultimately something sparks the fire. You know, we don't have the situation they have in Northern California where fires get started by lightning strikes. We don't see that here. Fires get started by a few things: crappy utility equipment or homeless people.
Correct. But either way, we're paying. The question is, are we going to pay through higher rates or higher taxes?
Well, that's the thing. Ultimately, we're going to pay, and then these utilities are still going to say, oh, we can't afford to do something like underground the power lines. Thanks so much for the call, Ray. Appreciate it. Another point to that first caller. Germany has undergrounded 100% of their power lines. Don't tell me you can't do it. You might say it's too expensive, and that's why PG&E jacked up their rate 6 times in a year, thanks to the approval of the CPUC. And then when the locals complain, what does Gavin Newsom do? He signs an executive order saying, okay, maybe we should rethink this whole undergrounding power lines thing. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Do you think the federal government suing Cal Edison over starting the Eaton Fire is going to change anything? Let's go to George in Simi Valley. George, hello.
Hi, Randy. One thing that has changed since the fire is that I live 2.5 blocks from the side of the valley, and because my circuit has one span that goes across a little bit of brush, we get shut off anytime the wind starts getting up to 10 or 15 miles an hour. And the last time it was shut off for 4 days. And it's happened 2 or 3 times now. So that's the other thing they're doing is we just, don't put more than 2 or 3 days of food in the house because it might go out anytime it blows.
Well, and you know what? They do those public safety power shutoffs all the time. It's incredibly inconvenient. And they also still charge you for those days of power.
Yeah, and they don't, the wind might be going a little bit during the day, but at night there's nothing. It would be nice if at night, hey, let's repower the circuit while there's no breeze, and when it picks up in the morning, we'll turn off, and that way, you can recharge things, or at least, you can have a light on at night to read or something, but it just goes out for 4 days. They don't bother putting it back on when the wind actually goes down.
It's such nonsense, and there's got to be a better way to do this. Sure, it stops them from getting sued because they'll start another fire, but it's massively inconvenienced their customers, and it can be deadly in the correct circumstances. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. The phone number, if you'd like to join us, is 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The news today is that Bill Asaley of the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that the federal government is suing Cal Edison because at this point, they're almost 100% certain that Cal Edison started the Eaton Fire. They're suing for $40 million, and they say that $40 million can't be passed on to customers. But do you really think that's going to change anything about the way this company operates? Is it going to change the way PG&E operates? I don't think so. But maybe you do. Give me a call at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Is there something else we should be doing here? Is there a better way to be handling this? Is it time to get serious about undergrounding all the power lines where it is feasible? Don't tell me it's impossible. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Get on the line right now. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Usually I wait till later in the show to do this, but I'm feeling like I want to do it right now. 790 KABC welcomes Disney's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas live in concert at the Hollywood Bowl on October 26. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. The Hollywood Bowl, The Nightmare Before Christmas. You're going to have a great time. That sounds like a wonderful show. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcast. The news that broke today is that U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley, on behalf of the U.S. Department of Justice, is suing Southern California Edison for $40 million for their role in starting the Eaton Fire that destroyed parts of Pasadena and the community of Altadena. Stuart from Seal Beach writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. Randy, yes, the power lines could be put underground by union labor, charging over $75 per man hour with wages and benefits at a huge cost to ratepayers, added administrative cost to supervised workers, and the cost is even higher. However, if you would cut the brush using goats, who I hear are not members of any union, you would greatly reduce fire risk from electrical wires, the homeless, and the lightning all at the same time. It's time to get rid of the bear on the state flag and have a goat on the state flag. I totally think the goat thing is fantastic, and I think we should all be doing that. At the same time, these weather events have gotten pretty crazy, and they only seem to be getting worse. Maybe it's time to take the one-time large investment. Maybe we need a bond. This is usually what infrastructure bonds are for, and we put these things underground. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an engineer. I work in radio. Let's go to Richard in Shasta County. Richard, hello.
Hello. There's two parts of electrical system. One is the transportation. That's those big towers like they have in Eaton Canyon. My family lived there in the 50s, so I know exactly what they look like. Those are the worst. They started fires similarly up here. And then there's the delivery. That's where the single utility pole, it's either on your side of the street or across the street from you, with a single, usually wooden pole. That's a delivery system. The delivery system, they put all those underneath, up here, underneath the ground. But I don't know how they can do the transportation system across the Cascade Mountains, because PG&E, this utility up here, is really cheap. You need four-wheel, big utility trucks, the three-axle kind, to go up that grade of like 12 degrees or 15 degrees or whatever. But they put the delivery system underneath. It takes about a week, and you hear it, the noise, the drill noise, all day for about 5 or 10 work days. And they hire those guys. That person from Seal Beach is exactly right. They hire them from all over the country. They're going to subcontract it. And the guy who was supervisor out here came from Michigan. And, he's gone now, back to Michigan. But they were paid a lot. But they do it quick and they do it clean. They don't screw around at all. But even then, it takes a long time. And down there, it's going to take longer because you've got concrete and asphalt to bother with, you see. Up here, it's just caliche and, some granite and dirt. But it's always the problem with the transportation. Those great big transformers on those four-legged towers are the problem. They were the problem down there at Eaton Canyon Reservoir, and they were the problem here that started the car fire years ago, because they're huge and the utilities don't want to get to them. They're too much of a bother, so they kick the can down the road.
Well, and we've seen the destructive effects of that over and over and over again, whether it's in the northern part of the state with PG&E or the southern part of the state with Cal Edison. And it's time to figure out there has to be a better way. With all the advances in technology, there has to be a better way to do this. Thank you so much for the call, Richard. I appreciate it. There's always been talk over the last few years, is it time to think about decentralizing the grid and not having this massively interconnected grid and having smaller microgrids and figuring out ways to, just power neighborhoods? I don't know. But This system has led to so much destruction in just the last decade. So many towns, so many homes, so many livelihoods, and so many lives. This infrastructure is incredibly dangerous, and if it's not properly maintained. PG&E is interesting, though. They actually have a financial incentive to do those undergrounding projects because the way the utility rules are written with the CPUC, PG&E is guaranteed a rate of return on their investors for capital improvement projects. So Cal Edison doesn't have that, but that's also part of the reason why PG&E got approvals for 6 rate hikes in a year. Yeah, we'll keep our system safer off the backs of Californians. I don't have all the answers. All I know is our current system is garbage. Greg writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. I 1000% agree with you that monetary fines will do nothing to change the behavior of conglomerates like SCE. The only thing that will make a difference is the risk of prison time. And while we're at it, those in power, looking at you, Karen Bass, should also face charges. They're in a position of public trust and people lost their homes and lives because she decided not to heed warnings about the wind, and she knows the infrastructure in California. I think both of those things are true. I think, one, the whole concept of deferred prosecution and no executives at these big companies ever see prison time for the destruction they cause, whether it's PG&E and the Camp Fire or the Car Fire or so many others. The big opioid companies, yeah, we sue them for millions and millions of dollars. And by the way, you know where that money goes? The opioid settlement funds? It goes to harm reduction programs passing out needles in Skid Row. But do any of those executives see prison time? No. At the same time, I think we are at the point where qualified immunity for politicians has got to go. If you want to be somebody that is responsible for leading a city, leading a county, leading a state, and your decisions are to the point where people lose their lives, they lose their livelihoods because of your incompetence, you should be held accountable for that. But those are big, sweeping changes that I don't see happening anytime soon. So the big news today was that U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley announced that the federal government is suing Cal Edison for $40 million for their role in starting and igniting the Eaton Fire that wiped out Altadena. Do you think $40 million is going to change the behavior of Cal Edison? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Do you think there's a better, smarter way to be dealing with all of this? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We'll take more of your calls, and we'll hear what Asaley had to say at his press conference in just a bit. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go straight to the announcement this morning. U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley.
All right, let's get to some breaking news. Acting U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley is getting ready to announce the filing of lawsuits concerning our wildfires from earlier in January.
Utility company
Let's listen in.
Whose repeated negligence has harmed our communities. Today, my office filed 2 civil lawsuits against Southern California Edison in connection with 2 separate wildfires, including the Eaton Fire that devastated the city of Altadena in January, resulting in 18 deaths.
Wait a second. I don't think Altadena was a city. I'm pretty sure Altadena was a neighborhood. It's an unincorporated area. But of course, when it comes to LA County, nobody understands what is actually a city and what is a neighborhood. I can't tell you over the last few weeks how many reporters I heard talk about the spike in burglaries in the city of Encino. Not an important point, just kind of one of my pet peeves. Especially if you're an elected member of the government, you should know what's a city. If you're the U.S. attorney, you should probably know what's a city. Again, just one of my pet peeves. We'll hear what Asaley has to say about this lawsuit next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. AZ Bob writes in at randykabc@gmail.com. As a resident of Altadena, you are correct. Altadena is unincorporated LA County. And typically you don't want to be in unincorporated LA County, although unincorporated Barger County is a lot different than unincorporated Hilda County. But thank you for clearing that up. By the way, that's how many times today that I almost said the email was johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Look, it's confusing when you're doing 2 shows a day. I'm lucky that the phone number's the same for both shows, but sometimes these things are going to happen. All right, let's hear what Asalee has to say on this $40 million lawsuit against Cal Edison for the Eaton Fire.
Of Altadena in January, resulting in 18 deaths and more than 10,000 structures damaged or destroyed, leaving part of that city looking like a bombed-out war zone.
Once again, not a city. Pasadena's a city.
In addition to the lives and homes that were lost, losses that are irreplaceable, the Eaton Fire burned nearly 8,000 acres of federal land in the Angeles National Forest, land used by hundreds of thousands of...
Now, here's going to be an interesting case study in this lawsuit if it goes to trial, which usually Cal Edison settles because they can pass on the settlement to their ratepayers. They did it with the Woolsey Fire, and don't tell me for a second they're not going to do it here. But could you make the argument if the federal government is suing you, the utility, for the damage done to the national forest, could you say, isn't it the responsibility of the federal government to be clearing the brush in that national forest? There's a lot of blame to be laid at local electeds, like in Los Angeles and the Palisades, for the brush that wasn't cleared there. There is state land where the state needs to be held responsible for the brush not cleared there. But there is also a hell of a lot of federal land where there needs to be someone held responsible for clearing the brush there. And the one thing I think everybody is sick of on all sides of the aisle is jurisdictional, bureaucratic finger pointing. I don't care whose job it is. Somebody just do it.
Land used by hundreds of thousands of people every year for outdoor...
Or get the goats. Goats do it all.
Land used by hundreds of thousands of people every year for outdoor activities such as hiking and camping.
Okay. I mean, some parts of the Angeles National Forest, you can say that, like Switzer Falls out by La Cañada. But you just hear the name the Angeles National Forest, it makes you think of all those TV shows and movies where someone has to drive to bury a body.
It is also an area of natural beauty near our nation's second largest city. The Eaton Fire...
Oh, great. He's rhyming, too.
The Eaton Fire lawsuit alleges that Southern California Edison negligently failed to properly maintain its power and transmission lines in the area where the fire ignited on a windy night in January. Negligence that had deadly and very costly consequences. Cal Edison has stated that it operates 3 transmission towers in the Eaton Canyon area overlooking Altadena, where the fire ignited. The company has admitted that it detected a fault on one of its transmission lines around the time that the fire ignited.
Yeah, see, that's where if you look at, who's culpable in this, Cal Edison has already basically admitted that they had some kind of role in this. It's not like they're straight up denying it.
The Eaton Fire has...
They also, and again, this looked very guilty. You remember a few months ago when Cal Edison, who again had not been officially accused or charged with starting this fire, said that they were going to set up a victims fund and they were going to pay out the victims of the Eaton Fire if you promise not to sue them. And yes, I'm well aware of the out-of-control expenses that happen with these things when the lawyers get involved. But sometimes the lawyers are the only ones that are going to get a company to act properly. Even though, as I have said before, and I'll say again, you're not going to see instrumental change in companies like this that do dangerous things to our people and our environment until there are actual criminal consequences for criminal behavior and not deferred prosecution and payouts that they can pass on to their customers.
The Eaton Fire has cost the United States more than $40 million in damages, including millions of dollars in fire suppression costs incurred because of Edison's negligence. This negligence in maintaining and operating its facilities were the proximate and direct cause not only of last January's Eaton Fire, but also the Fairview Fire of 2022.
You just getting around to that one, or you figured you'd lump them together? But sure, these fires happen all the time, and I don't think anybody out there believes that the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire are going to be the last major fires we see in Southern California. Might see another one this fall. Hopefully not. Thank you all so much for listening and being a part of the show. We try to provide you the most important news of the day that has a local focus and allow you to call in and chime in as well. Thank you all so much for listening. If you miss any episodes of the show, go to KABC.com/newsblitz. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.